Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. We are continuing our discussion on the National Conference. And joining us now is another delegate. He will represent the civil society group at the conference. His name is Jaye Gaskia. He is the immediate past national convener of the United Action for Democracy. He's currently the national president of the Protest to Power movement. Mr. Gaskia, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much. Good day.
A few minutes ago, we spoke to Dr. Junaid Mohammed, and he is also a delegate, and he's going to the national conference. And he said that this is a confusing conference, and but he is going. What are you going? How do you feel about the conference itself?
Let me say that what we have stated very clearly from the beginning is that the conference, this particular national conference, we see as an opportunity. And that because it is an opportunity for engagement, we are going to engage it in a very robust and critical manner. And why do we think it's an opportunity? I mean, 3 or 4 key factors. One is that the conference is happening. The conference has been given as a consensus from a presidency that is currently, at the moment, very weak and getting increasingly weaker. It's becoming increasingly isolated, not just from the political class, but even from its own political party, which is also getting weaker. So because of that weakened position of the presidency, doing something that may likely regain public goodwill is something that the presidency really wants to do. But then that tells us that, I mean, it's from a position of weakness. So it means that this is about the best time that we can wrest the most concession from the ruling political elite in the country. The second is that this conference is taking place on the eve of a general election that is going to be extremely very contentious, given the shifting balance of forces within and among the political parties. So 2015 is going to be extremely very contentious. This conference is going to be significant in terms of articulating and setting agenda for that conference. And then thirdly, of course, it's also happening in a very symbolic year, the anniversary of the centenary. Again, an amalgamation that also remains contentious. So all the issues around the amalgamation are coming up now. And so this conference happening now cannot afford to avoid addressing those issues. And so because of that, we think that it represents an opportunity, and it's important that civil society, and particularly activists and active citizens, should engage with that process.
Okay, so there are a lot of issues that potentially could be discussed, from immunity to security votes to big issues about confederacy, federal system. What are you mostly going to be articulating there?
Okay. I mean, we just recently also released what we called our program of action for the conference. That's for the pro-democracy civil society delegates going to the conference. It's on the basis of that that we intend to build alliances within the conference. It's on the basis of that that we intend to also vote. Key for us, primary for us, are actually socioeconomic issues and socioeconomic rights. We are extremely very concerned, and we shall be pushing very seriously the full a bill of rights, a full and comprehensive bill of rights that is justiciable and that is enforceable. Currently, what we have is a division of those rights in the Constitution of Nigeria into 2 chapters, one of which is justiciable and enforceable, the other which is just merely a wish list. We want to see a combination, the merger of those 2 chapters, and then making them justiciable. We want governments held accountable for realizing those rights, progressively realizing those rights. That's our key agenda. That's our key social agenda. But of course, there are also key issues in the facing the polity. We are very concerned about poverty, about unemployment. And these are all around the economic foundation of the country. So we are also going to be pushing for a situation where the economic system, the place and the role of corruption in that system is also put on the agenda, and that where we clearly define how we want to tackle corruption and how we want to grow the economy. We will be pushing for that at the conference. And then, of course, there are existing issues around which civil society has already built some form of consensus amongst itself over the past 2 decades. So issues around fiscal federalism, in terms of resource control, in terms of resource allocation and resource distribution, and in terms of the powers that will accrue to the constituent units of the federation vis-a-vis the federal government. But even within the context of fiscal autonomy and within the context of what could be its political equivalent, which could be regional autonomy, is also the question of the fact that we should also have within even those autonomous regions local government autonomy, because our experience tells us that the government that is closest to the people is actually the weakest in terms of the hierarchy of powers, and we need to turn this around. We need to turn things on their head. So these are the basic core fundamental issues that we would be addressing there, seeking to address there. And then, of course, there is the question of citizenship and indigenship. For us, what we want to see is a single Nigerian citizenship that is not abridged regardless of where you are in the country. We want to see a single citizenship of Nigeria. We want the only qualification in terms of representation to be that of residency status wherever you are in Nigeria. But we do want to see in Nigeria where all Nigerians have the same citizenship rights, regardless of where they are located and where they relocate.
What you propose now, they sound so idealistic, looking at the Nigerian situation. Let me give you an example. When you talk about the allocation of resources, the recent weeks, in fact, in the last few days, the feelers we're getting from the north, they're pushing back on that resource control. In fact, pushing to the point, I just spoke to Mohammed, who said essentially that the oil in the South doesn't belong to the South. This is, that idea has been out there in public. How do you see a consensus on some of these issues that you just mentioned with the people that are delegates to this conference and knowing their positions?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things that we have started doing really actually is also reaching out to allies within each of the various categories of delegates that are going to the conference. We have putting up a structure, a civil society coordinating secretariat, and we are reaching out to all of these. Among these the Labour constituency, but we are also reaching out to some of our allies within, like the Northern Caucus, the South Caucus, and the rest of that. Now, at the end of the day, because the question of resource control for us should be looked at within the context of fiscal autonomy and within the context of a regional autonomy, in terms of what should actually constitute the component units of the federation, the federated units of Nigeria, and in terms of therefore what percentage of the resources, because at the moment the problem is that most of the revenue is federally collected. We want to see a reversal of that, and we want to see a situation where component units of the federation actually then pay taxes to the center, both for common affairs and also for the affairs of the center itself. And so we need to see a formula that accommodates that retains the bulk in the region of origin, but we also need to be able to. I mean, part of what the North has said, and part of what civil society has also said along with the North, is that, for example, there has to be like a genuine interest, for example, to invest in other sources of revenue for the country, solid minerals, which we are, for example, which are laying to waste, which are being mined illegally, which is endangering the life of citizens in the north, and so on and so forth. But from which huge amount of resources revenue can also be tapped. And the unfortunate thing is that there is actually a solid minerals development levy, 1% of the resources of the money accruing to the federation account deducted before the others are shared, which goes into a development fund for that, but which has never been used for that purpose. At the last count, the Senate of the Republic, or the Federal Republic, did say that nearly $1 trillion of that amount of money accumulated over the past 10 years has been what we call misallocated, used for other for other things other than what it was. So these are some of the things that we intend to actually really put on the table. Let there be open, frank negotiations about these issues. And at the end of the day, it's not likely that maximalist positions from both ends are going to come true. And our role as civil society activists will be to help to secure that middle ground that will be beneficial to all citizens.
So Gaskia, you have to have the conference. They must agree unanimously, or 75% of them must agree on something for it to leave that conference. And then where does it go? Are you comfortable with the process of making whatever is agreed on to be a law in the country?
Yes, I mean, we have said actually that we view this conference largely as a constitutional conference. That's the position of civil society, and I think that that's also the position of majority of the delegate blocks that are going there. And so, if to that extent, and to the extent that the modalities also allows the conference to actually determine how what should happen to its outcome, I think that that's also one opportunity that can be seized, because then if the conference declares itself, describes itself and defines itself as a constitutional conference, then we are talking about issues where at the very minimum you are looking at certain laws that need to come out of this conference, and at the medium to the maximum you're actually looking at a new constitution, prototype constitution. And we are very clear in our demand actually for a referendum in terms of the outcomes of this. So at the minimum, some basic primary omnibus, all-inclusive laws addressing different category sectors of the economy needs to come out. And then at the medium to maximum, the material for a new constitution that can actually be honest with itself when it says we, the people of Nigeria, make for ourselves this constitution.
All right, Mr. Gaskia, we are really out of time. Let me ask you, so what will you consider a success, and what will you consider a failure at the end of this conference?
What we would consider a failure at the end of this conference is if after the conference it is business as usual. What we would consider a success is if after this conference, at the very minimum, we have changed the dynamics for the 2015 general elections, that at the very minimum the political parties are forced to actually pick up and adopt issues and say that, for example, what happens to the outcome of the conference, even in the event of a referendum, because at the end of the day, this government, the current government, does not actually have time to implement, to commence the implementation of the outcome of the conference. It will be left to a new government to do. And what will be a success is if those issues are clearly articulated, they are there in the forms of provisions in the form of a new constitution that then Nigerians can table before political parties and actually hold them to account in terms of who they give their mandates to.
All right, Mr. Gaskia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you too.
That has been Mr. Gaskia. He is the immediate past national convener of the United Action for Democracy. When we come back, we are going to continue our discussion on the national conference. We are still going to talk to some other guests, and also we'll give you the chance to give us your feedback on what we're discussing, so stay tuned.